Everyone dreams of quitting corporate. Well, at the start of this year, I did just that. And within just 4 to 5 months, I was making $20,000 a month, literally 3 to 4 times more than the peak that I had made as an employee. And just a month or two after that, I decided I had to completely shut it down. And that's where we are now. Ground it down to basically zero, and we're rebuilding from scratch. In this video, I'm just going to run you guys through what I learned on that journey, why I shut it down, and what's next. So basically, we're going to have to rewind back to 2024 when this all begun. In 2024, at the start of the year, I set some goals for what I wanted to achieve that year, as I'm sure many people do. And then I got really busy at work as the year kicked off and I returned to my job. And the experience, as I recall it, was basically I blinked and it was April. And then I blinked again and it was July. And then I blinked again, it was basically fucking a write-off. It was September. And at that point I just panicked because I was like, I assessed sort of what I'd wrote down, which at that point it looked like a delusion. It just looked like a joke. It was sad but funny because nothing had been achieved, right? And I looked at it and was like, wow, what's gone wrong here? I'm almost in a worse position than I started the year somehow. And I could only put it down to one thing, like the projects I wanted to work on, I just didn't have the bandwidth. I was working 50, 60 hours a week in my job and it was just tiring the hell out of me. Like having to be on the employer's schedule all the time. I'd be working late into the evenings, working on the weekends, and it wasn't enough to move the needle. I could just never get anywhere and it was just fucking miserable. So I basically got to the point where I hit the wall in October. I am not doing this anymore. I was very financially fragile at the time. I couldn't just quit my job. I mean, I wouldn't have been able to pay my expenses, but I am going to ride this out till the end of the year, stack every dollar I can, go full frugal, and basically come 1 January 2025, I'd rather starve than do another year like this. That was how committed I was. I was like, I'm quitting corporate and I'm never going back, was the mindset. I'm just going to have to make it work one way or another. And so that was, I guess, the switch. That was how it happened. I wrote out the rest of the year. And once I started planning, I was sort of like, shit, what am I going to do? I didn't have any great revolutionary idea for a business. Why don't I just do what I'm already doing in my job, but just try and sell those skills to the market rather than to my employer exclusively? That was basically the thinking at the time. I didn't know what the fuck else to do, but I can't keep doing this because this is just not working at all. And so once I decided to do that, I was like, well, okay, how do I sort of soften the blow or minimize risk? And I just decided, since I'd built up a good relationship with my employer at the time, rather than burn the bridge, I'll try and flip them into my first client. That way I'm not starting from absolute zero. And thankfully that worked. So that was, I guess, a soft landing for the month of January when we kicked off. They basically kept me flat out for that month. I was independent, so I'd left Australia and I had relocated to Bali to kick the year off. And then February came and I'd agreed as part of that engagement to scale down my hours from full-time in January to effectively 3 days a week for February and then 2 days a week. So the moment that the scale down came, I basically panicked because I was like, holy shit, what am I going to do now? I have no clients. How am I going to get clients? Is this all just a delusion? Am I going to just embarrass myself publicly? Like, what's next, right? And so I jumped on YouTube, of all places, and consumed as much content on basically how do you sell? Sales content, marketing content. I don't have time to read books and shit. I just need someone to tell me how the fuck do I get clients tomorrow? Otherwise my revenue is going to go to zero and I'm not going to be able to pay my fucking rent. And so that was the mindset, and I basically absorbed as much as I could within a week or so, and then downloaded Sales Navigator, built a lead list, and just started firing like the worst DMs ever to strangers. It was truly like a cold start. It was as bad as it could get. I had no brand, I hadn't published any content, and the craziest thing about all of it is it worked. You probably weren't expecting that, neither was I, and that's the honest reality. It actually worked, and within 4 months, I would say 6 weeks of starting the outreach activity, I had actually already won a reasonable amount of work to the point where I'd reached full capacity for what I could handle myself with the work that was still trickling through from my old employer. So I basically bottlenecked myself pretty early on. In the month of May was sort of where I'd signed up most of the work, and I don't know how I'm going to manage all of this actually. I'd better slow down. And there'd been a long booked family trip in Europe in the month of June. And this was the point where really the lesson hit me, right? I was literally in Sicily, of all places, in a fucking villa in Sicily, at 4 o'clock in the morning after having got back from a long Italian dinner at 1 o'clock in the morning, and I had a client call at 4 a.m. Just feeling like death itself. It was just miserable, and I sort of realized, holy shit, I've escaped one job just to build myself another, except now I've got 5 bosses instead of 1. Like, it's a golden cage. And the irony was, like, that month, that was when I'd gone past $20,000 in a single month, which like was insane money for me at the time. I couldn't have imagined that I was going to make that much money back in October 2024 when I sort of thought of the idea for the first time. But I was there in Europe, living internationally, making the money, and I was like, this fucking sucks. Like, this is not it. I'm spinning plates, seeing how long I can keep them spinning before one falls off and cracks. Like, it was just not a lifestyle, not a vibe, nothing to aspire to. It felt like freedom, but it was just a total fucking illusion and a really miserable realization. And so at that point, I got back to New York just after that. I survived by basically grinding through that entire holiday, which significantly reduced. I mean, the whole point of a holiday is to unwind, right? I wasn't able to at all. I didn't switch off a single day. I was on my laptop 5 hours a day minimum. There was a point in Portugal, we were in the city of Porto, which is a fucking amazing place. I think I muscled through like 30 hours of work in basically 72 hours state. It was diabolical, but lesson learned. And so I got to New York, I stopped selling immediately. I need to go back to the drawing board. I need to redesign this. And that means, despite the fact that it worked, objectively, this thing made money. If I kept selling, I could have probably pushed it a bit further, but it would have just been me. What kind of lifestyle is that to aspire to, right? I could probably make 30 grand a month, for example, but I'd have to work 300 hours a month as well. Someone's got to do all that work, all the projects. It was like strategic and custom project sort of work. It was really just the worst kind of work. And this has got to stop. So made the call to shut it down, went back to the drawing board, designed a similar but more advanced sort of version of the business that is more systemized and that will actually scale without me as a bottleneck. And that sort of landed me where I am currently, sitting in New York City. I guess, thankfully, we've removed the fragility from our position. From the last 9 months, I've managed to stack $30,000, which I'm prepared to basically nuke the whole lot, investing in this new business. What have we proved? We've proved we can sell cold into the market. I've proved I can live freely and travel around the world and still deliver great results for clients. But I didn't prove that I could scale something. And that's the dream. That's true sovereignty and true freedom requires something that runs without you. And so that is really what's left to prove. So I guess that sums it up. That's the story of how I quit, how I got here, and yeah, what's next. So I guess I'll see you guys in 48 hours for the first update on the trenches.